In this lesson, we'll take a look at drawing a horse with charcoal in about an hour. Hello there everyone, Matt here with thevirtualinstructor.com, and in this lesson we're going to take a look at drawing a horse using various forms of charcoal, and we're only going to spend about an hour on this drawing. Now this video itself is only about 20 minutes. The process took me about an hour, and in this lesson we'll go through the most important parts of the process. So grab your charcoal and let's go ahead and dive in. For this drawing, we'll be working with vine or willow charcoal, which is very soft and brittle, but easily blended and removed from the surface. We'll also be using compressed charcoal in the form of a charcoal pencil. These marks are going to be very dark, but a little bit harder to erase. We'll also be using a blending stump. You can use a blending stump or a blending tortilla. And we'll be working with a couple of erasers, a kneaded eraser, and also a vinyl eraser for more precision erasing. We're going to start here on our drawing paper. This is just white sulfate drawing paper, and I'm going to start with a stick of vine charcoal. This is one of the smaller pieces I have, as you can see. You'll notice that I'm not holding the charcoal like a pencil. Instead, I'm holding it between my index finger and my thumb and using the side of the charcoal to make these initial marks. In this initial part of the process, I'm just looking at the contour lines and trying to find shapes as well. I'm making comparisons between the negative space around the horse and the negative space on my drawing paper to find these shapes. You'll also notice that I've drawn a line across the brow line. That'll help me understand where the tops of the eyes are located. And once I have these initial marks in place, I can use them to make comparisons as I add the remainder of the marks for the rest of the face of the horse or the head of the horse, and also the neck and the lower portion of the body. Now, charcoal is a messy medium, but it's surprisingly easy to alter. So don't get too wrapped up in precision at this point. You want to be as accurate as possible, but keep in mind that we're going to be able to make lots of changes to this drawing throughout the process, and you'll see how this develops. We'll go ahead and draw a couple of shapes for the ears and give a very loose indication of where the hair is located in between the two ears. Now that we have a rough contour line drawing in place, we're going to shift our gears a little bit and start thinking about value. Value is the darkness or lightness of a color. We need to have a full range of value in this piece, meaning we need to have the darkest darks and the lightest lights and the full range of grays in between. So sticking here with the vine charcoal, I'm going to start planning out some of the areas where I see shapes of darker value. And I'm also going to go ahead and give this drawing a quick little smudge here. This will pull some of the soft vine charcoal into some of the open spaces and provide us with a nice gray base in which to manipulate the values. Don't worry that your drawing is getting messed up at this point. I know it's really easy to do that, especially if you're accustomed to drawing with pen and ink or graphite, but charcoal is a different medium entirely. We can move the charcoal around on the surface and erase relatively easily. So we're going to be using our eraser to pull out the light values, and we're going to be using our compressed charcoal and vine charcoal to develop the dark values. Now that I have some grays in place on the head, I'm going to continue with that work of finding the darker values and filling in the shapes that I see. So we're only focused on mimicking the shapes that we see in the reference with the darker tones. Don't worry that the drawing is getting dark, because now we can go back with a kneaded eraser and start lifting up some of the charcoal. We're essentially pulling out the highlights when we do this. So you want to think about your eraser as a mark making tool just as much as your charcoal. Now our light source is originating from the left side. This means that most of our highlights are going to exist on the left side of the horse, and most of our shadows are going to exist on the right side of the horse. So after a bit of erasing, now we're ready to start making things a little bit more controlled, and I'm going to use my blending stump for this. Again, we want to think about the blending stump as a mark making tool, just like the eraser. We can use it somewhat like a brush and pull the vine charcoal into areas where we need a slightly darker value. We can also use the blending stump, of course, to smooth transitions of value, meaning that we can create gradations from dark to light. With the blending stump, I'm going to go ahead and pull out a few lines for some of the hair at the top. We'll refine this later in the process. And we're going to go ahead and go down into the face or the head of the horse and start pulling some of those dark to medium values around. Now I'm continually going back and forth with my eyes between the photo reference and the drawing surface, continually making comparisons between the shapes that I see and the shapes that I am including in the drawing. Now we're going to go back with a bigger stick of vine charcoal, as you saw there for just a second, just to make a little bit more darker value down here. And then again, a quick blend with the blending stump, pulling the material around. Now, even though we're only spending about an hour on this drawing, it's still important to be patient and allow your drawing to develop, especially when you're working with charcoal. Keep in mind that your drawing is going to go through multiple stages. It's not going to look like a finished drawing right from the start, and these beginning stages that we're still in are critical. It's very easy to get frustrated at this point and feel like your drawing is not developing, but it's very important to stick with your drawing and continue on, keeping in mind that charcoal is easily manipulated. We can push and pull the material around on the surface and lift and erase and continue to add more material if we wish. Now you see I've switched over to a more precise eraser. This is a vinyl eraser, so it's a little bit of a tougher eraser than the kneaded eraser. It does leave some shavings on the surface, but you can blow these away or brush them away with a drafting brush. Now we've got a faint version of our horse in place with some of the values. We're going to go ahead and continue the process of darkening the values. I'm using a charcoal pencil here, but you'll see I quickly switch back to the vine charcoal since I'm not quite ready to commit to some of the areas of darker value. Now what I mean by that is with a compressed charcoal pencil or a compressed charcoal stick, this form of charcoal is a little less forgiving and a little bit harder to manipulate and erase. So I'm reserving my compressed charcoal applications to the end stages of the drawing. We'll continue on working our way from the top to the bottom here with the vine charcoal, again adding some darker values around the eyes and on the shadowed areas on the right side of the head. As we gradually broaden the range of value, the form of the horse starts to make more sense. Value, again, is the darkness or lightness of a color, and it tells us about the texture within the scene, but more importantly, it also tells us about the form of the subject that we're drawing. We'll continue patiently working our way down, continuing to analyze the photo reference, adding shapes of darker value. We'll refine the shape for the nostril before switching back over to our blending stump, and now we're going to smooth some of these applications. We'll use the blending stump as we have before, somewhat like a brush, pulling the vine charcoal into areas and also smoothing the transition from dark to light. And as we do so, we'll continue to be patient with this process. Again, it's very easy to get discouraged and look at your drawing and feel like it's not developing. But right now, we are only thinking about darker and lighter values and the shapes of those values. This can make your drawing appear pretty messy during the process, but as we continue to refine, your drawing will make a lot more sense. Now I've switched back to the vinyl eraser and I'm erasing out a few highlights around the eye, including the highlights within the eye. We'll also use this eraser to pull out a few strokes for some lighter strands of hair. Now, I absolutely love this eraser. This is a Tombow mono eraser. As I mentioned before, it is a vinyl eraser. It can be used for erasing a variety of different media, including charcoal and graphite, but it's a great eraser for precision erasing. And erasing is an important part of the drawing process. A lot of people assume that erasing is just for fixing mistakes, but it's not. As you can see here, erasing is also a viable mark-making process. And we'll continue with the kneaded eraser here, erasing out some of the stronger highlights that exist on the bottom of the head and also around the lips of the horse. We'll continue to refine that muscular section on the side of the head that features all kinds of interesting shapes of dark and light. Now we'll get back to the lesson in just a minute, but if you're enjoying charcoal, then you'll definitely love the course, the Charcoal Drawing course, which is available at thevirtualinstructor.com. In this course, we cover a variety of subject matter, including portraiture, animal portraiture, landscape, and still life. And for a limited time, I'm offering this course at 20% off the regular price. There's a link in the description below. Just use the promo code COURSE20 at checkout. All right, now back to the horse here, and you can see that I'm using the blending stump to continue smoothing transitions of tone and value. And at this point in the drawing, I'm starting to get a little bit more precise and refined in my applications of both the charcoal and the eraser, and also with the blending stump. I like to think of working with charcoal somewhat like working with a ball of clay. If you're trying to make something out of clay, you start with a ball of clay, and you have to continue to move it around until you get your sculpture in place. Well, the same thing's true with charcoal. We start with a very loose interpretation of the subject, and then we gradually refine the drawing using our tools. So the charcoal, of course, the blending stump, and also the erasers. Now, there is a slight reflected highlight on the right side of the jaw, so I've used the kneaded eraser to remove that. And now I've switched over to the compressed charcoal pencil. Now we're going to get a little bit more defined with some of our details, and we're also going to get quite a bit darker with our darkest values. This will expand the contrast within the scene and create a more full, more natural range of value. Now keep in mind that the compressed charcoal eraser is much more difficult to erase compared to the vine charcoal. So the marks that you make at this stage are going to be more permanent. You can still blend and smooth transitions of value using the blending stump with compressed charcoal, but erasing is definitely more difficult. So keep this in mind as you switch over to the compressed charcoal. We'll go ahead and start from the top and work our way to the bottom after we've addressed the eye. Again, adding some of those darker values with the compressed charcoal, and now you can see that I'm using a blending tool to smooth those transitions. We'll also add some lines for the wispy hair at the top. Now, like always, they don't have to be an exact replica of your photo reference. In fact, your drawing should be a little bit different from your reference. We're trying to create a drawing that's a little bit more interesting and more expressive than a photo, obviously. So don't feel like you have to replicate everything exactly. Of course, you want to try to get the proportions correct, and you want to try to get the range of value correct. But some of the details on your subject you can leave out, and I'm deciding to leave out some of the details in this drawing. One such detail is the piece of hay or grass that the horse has in its mouth. I'm going to leave that out of my drawing. You're welcome to include it, of course, in your own drawing. Here you can see I'm refining the shape of the white mark on the head of the horse, and we'll do some further refining later in the process to this section as well. I can use the compressed charcoal in some of the areas where we have middle to dark values as well, so the compressed charcoal is not just reserved for the darkest areas of value. You'll notice that the compressed charcoal does show a little bit more of the texture of the paper, but of course this can be fixed using the blending stump, just smoothing those applications into the paper. Now the side of our head of the horse is starting to look a lot more muscular and a lot more natural since we're getting a broader range of value and an increase in contrast in this area. We'll continue with our compressed charcoal applications, working down to the bottom of the head. Here we're making some of the shadows around the lips a little bit stronger, and also refining some of the details where we have that little bit of darker value on the upper lip. And just like with the vine charcoal, some of the compressed charcoal is going to get on your blending stump, and you can use just the blending stump in some areas to make some of the values a little bit darker if you wish. Now, I'm using the vine charcoal again. This is the softer form of charcoal because I want some of these values down here on the body to just be a little bit softer and not quite as dark. And then it's back to the compressed charcoal pencil here, refining some of the hair on the mane that we can see just a slight bit of through that opening. We'll pull out a few more highlights here, again using the kneaded eraser. And at this point, you know that the erasures do not have to be perfect because we can refine them using the blending stump and with additional applications of charcoal. Now, when you use the blending stump, the amount of pressure that you place on it will affect how much blending occurs. By adding more pressure to the blending stump, you're going to move more of the material, obviously, but you're also going to lift up some of the material, creating a lighter value. If you want to just smooth out an area of dark value, use a very light touch to do so. Now you can see I have altered the top edge of the white section on the top of the head here and made it more like the photo reference. And as I do so, I'm also adding some more compressed charcoal up here to make some of the values a little bit darker. Then we'll go ahead and address that really dark shape of shadow underneath the neck of the horse. We'll start with the vine charcoal, just planning out the shape. We'll blend it after adding quite a bit of the material to the surface. And as we blend it with the blending stump, you'll see what I was talking about just a few minutes ago, where when we do blending with the blending stump, some of the charcoal material does stick to the blending stump, creating a lighter appearance. I'm using a very light touch for this blending here, and even still, some of the material still lifts up. Now with the vine charcoal, the values aren't quite dark enough, and I also need to refine the jaw of the horse a little bit, so we'll use the compressed charcoal pencil to do so. Now I'm using the side of the tip of the charcoal pencil to make these dark values. And here you can see just how much darker the compressed charcoal can go compared to the vine charcoal. Now, as you work throughout the drawing, you'll find areas that need further refinement. Here I see that I need a slightly darker value right to the left of the eye, so I'll go ahead and address that real quickly with a bit of compressed charcoal and then a quick blend with the blending stump. And then it's back to the neck of the horse, again making those values nice and dark, and then gently blending them with the blending stump. Now at this point we can use our kneaded eraser and clean up any of the rogue charcoal that has gone outside of the body of the horse. We're essentially cleaning our drawing up because at this point we've spent about an hour on the drawing and our charcoal drawing of a horse is complete. Thanks so much for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you were able to pick up a couple of things here and there. Don't forget to check out the membership program over at thevirtualinstructor.com, where we have a ton of drawing and painting courses, weekly live lessons, which are also recorded and stored in our vault, weekly critiques as part of the Members Minute, and a year-long curriculum for visual arts teachers. If you want to learn more about our membership program, I'll leave a link in the description below. And if you like this video and you haven't done so yet, make sure you subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Thanks again for watching, and as always, I wish you all the very best in your artistic success.